Plexcelsior, everybody. We are live. Welcome to another edition of Crisis on Earth Plex, Multiplexes, Arrowverse, Inner Geekdom, whatever discussion show. We talk about all things geek now, not just the Arrowverse. But tonight we're keeping it strictly MCU, specifically Avengers Endgame. I am one of your hosts for the evening, the Cosmic Night Fury, Nico Suave Regoli, and I am joined, as always, by my House Night Fury faction mate, my brother, the Z-Man, the Arrowverse champion, Zaddeus Z-Man Smith. How you doing, my brother?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Yo, super psyched for this discussion that we're about to have. Really, it's how you doing, man?
It feels good to be back, especially considering we didn't have a show last week because I had a massive headache because everyone was mowing their grass at the same time, and it was a nightmare. But I'm feeling good now. My nose is full of nasal spray, so I can breathe. And yay for that. Yay for that. Also joining us tonight, Mr. Carefree himself, one half of the Neighborhood Watch Alliance, Richard Schwartz. How you doing, my man?
Well, I'm doing fantastic, Can't wait to talk about this movie because, to quote Thanos, it did put a smile on my face.
And also, there is a possibility that Malcolm Goldie Lay will also be joining us at some point during this discussion. Just a matter of when. But, fellas, I'm trying to figure out in my head where do we want to start this discussion off, and I think it would be a good place to start off if we just answer this one question: did we like the movie?
That is a very good question. And besides my Stardust that week, you can go see my review about the movie at RetributionZ. Cheap plug, wink. Basically, I love this movie. I really did. I'm sorry to just jump in like that, but I just saw it again today, and it's amazing how I still had some of the same, even after seeing it Thursday, I still had some of the same giddiness and excitement of when certain moments happen in this movie. I'm like, oh my god, yeah! And then I loved it. This was me in the theater, and I felt kind of out of place because I felt like I was in the theater where people had probably seen about 5 times already and was kind of calmed down. So I'm the only one in my seat at the edge, yeah. So loved it.
Yes, and speaking of the devil, Malcolm Goldie Lay has officially joined us way sooner than I thought he would. I thought he was going to be here 20 minutes from now, and instead it was 20 seconds. So how are you tonight, Malcolm?
I'm doing pretty good. Just started to talk about Endgame and all that.
All right. So we now know Zaddeus loved this movie. Richard, how did you feel about it?
Now, did you ask Malcolm how he felt about it, or me?
You.
Oh,
you first.
I obviously loved it. All the emotions that this movie did to me, it gave me full of emotions. To hysterical laughter, to super sad, to holy crap moments. It was definitely a perfect movie for how 22 films, 11 years in the making for the core 6 characters. That's all. I'll go on more once we talk about it some more.
Malcolm Goldie Lay, your thoughts on the movie in terms of dislike, love, hate. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, no, I thought this was the rest of the MCU. Just kidding. But
Malcolm, I was about to kick you off. Hey,
no, I really loved it. It's my number 1 movie of the year so far. It's going to take a lot to move it from that position, but yeah, I've seen it twice already. Probably going to try and see it more times in the cinemas. But yeah.
And as for me, I've unfortunately only gotten to see the movie once so far. I wanted to see it at least one more time before we got to this discussion, this point in time. But sadly, I'm in college, and I have 31 hours left to put in for my internship with only 10 days left to do so. So I've had to buckle down a little bit. But I will say that coming out of the theater, when that movie ended, I felt like it was the best movie theater experience I've ever had, and arguably the best movie I've ever seen. Simply because of the reasons we've all established. It was a culmination of 22 films, 10 years of long-term storytelling coming to this conclusion, wrapping up all the little details in a nice little bow. And my God, I won't say that I broke down in tears like a waterfall, because only How to Train Your Dragon 3 can do that. But there were several times in this movie where I was shedding tears for various reasons. And we're going to get into a lot of those reasons as we get through with this discussion.
Can I say No, go on. Sorry. I was going to say one of the best reasons why this movie was so great was not necessarily the movie, but the audience reaction.
I can believe that. I can believe that.
I can definitely see that too. Like, because the people who are watching this movie, like, again, as we've stated, this is the culmination of 22 films. If anyone was watching this movie and they hadn't seen any of the other 21 before this, what the hell were you doing in the theater? Because like that's required viewing. That's required viewing. Those first 21 movies, so that you understand how all of this came to be. Richard, please turn off your TV. It's very distracting.
Give me a sec. I'll move. Give me a sec.
I did hear it. I heard Nico talking to a speaker too again, I think.
Yeah. Sorry about that, folks. While Richard figures that out.
It was my mom's. I just have to move.
It's all good.
That's good. It's all good.
But so we now know we all love this movie. We all love this movie. Let's go through some of our favorite parts. And, Malcolm, let's start with you. Let's go in reverse this time.
I mean, for me, the whole final battle, just altogether was one of my favorite parts. Like, just seeing like all the characters just all coming in. They're just like with seemingly Falcon leading the charge with saying on your left, but yet he's not the first one. You see the first one you see is Black Panther, Shuri and Okoye come through the portals. Like that whole final battle is like. And also, I mean, I'd say it's best use of comedic car horn I've ever heard in a big battle sequence as well. It's especially with the just run, like the whole chase to try and get to Scott's vans, like the whole relay race thing with the gauntlet was just so fun to watch.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
And I mean, one of the big moments in that I got all excited for was actually not Cap grabbing Mjolnir for the first time. It's actually seeing all the female heroes sort of just. I mean, even though it was really convenient they all happened to be in the same era at the same time, I don't care. It was a great moment to show that it's not just Black Widow and Captain Marvel that exist as a female superhero.
Yes, I'm gonna nerd out hard when I talk about that scene because I loved it so much. I was a reader of the A-Force comics, and I just kind of dropped off when the Civil War II stuff was happening and everything that was going on in Marvel Comics had to tie in to the Civil War II storyline, and it got very frustrating to follow along and also very expensive. Very expensive. There's only so many comics you can buy at a single time, and eventually you have to realize, okay, I'm spending way too much money on these digital books. But yeah, I enjoyed that scene very much. And like having Spider-Man be the one to set up that intro of them all having the pose off in front of Thanos of like, we'll get this football to the goal line. The football being the Iron Man Infinity Gauntlet. That was just wonderful. My jaw was on the floor in joy.
Yeah. And I mean, the other thing is the cinematography in that final battle was really great. It's very reminiscent of when you look at the comics, they've got a big battle sequence. You've got the whole full page spread of seeing the whole scope of the battle, which we see that then you've got various panels showing small snippets of the battles, and that was I kind of got that feel from the movie as well. It's like when they had a wide shot of the whole battlefield, then every now and then you'll go to close up. It's like we need to see Okoye kicking some ass over here. We need to see Cap 4 and Iron Man over here. Like just, and I mean, but aside from the big battle sequence, I think one of my other favorite moments was probably just seeing Smart Hulk doing the whole angry thing.
Push. I find it kind of derivative. Like when he's like, I find it all a little bit derivative.
Okay,
Yeah,
Malcolm.
that's
Before I let Richard say some of his favorite scenes, I want to ask you. Now, as of this taping, I still have not gotten to anything Middle Earth, but I have heard some people describe that final battle sequence as very Lord of the Rings-esque in how it's looked. Is that a fair comparison? Me asking as someone who has never seen a Lord of the Rings film.
I mean, I didn't think of it like that, but now that you mention it, then it actually was because you had Captain America doing the whole inspirational moment thing, or not so much when you actually finally got to say Avengers Assemble. Then you've got the whole battle chanting when they had Black Panther and all that going Bay and all that. So I mean, yeah, I mean, I can kind of see that comparison now that it's actually been brought up. I've not actually heard that people say that about it before.
Richard, now we can go to you and keep it to a maximum of 2 favorites so that no one else gets their favorites taken away. So
yeah, Malcolm. Okay. Are we just doing memorable? Are you saying memorable scenes?
Your favorite parts. Your 2 favorite parts maximum.
My 2 favorite parts. Well, I'm gonna go with my 2 most one was an emotional moment. It was the first time Scott Lang saw his daughter. Like, as like 16, 17-year-old. To me, that really hit home. Not only for the fact that like his daughter was not dusted, but the fact is like you've seen an Ant-Man. He was in jail for about 3 years. He missed 3 years of his daughter's life. After Ant-Man, after Civil War, he was in 2 years house arrest. So he got to see his daughter, but still that's another 2 years. And then after Ant-Man and the Wasp, he loses 5 years. He basically loses I'm going to say 10 years of his daughter's life.
Yeah, 10 years. 10 years of fatherhood.
And also, I just thought like the level of impactment, like he was so happy to see her, but at the same time, the level of like, crap, I miss my daughter's childhood. And be like, you got so big, so emotional. And another of my favorites of the scenes was also another Ant-Man and the Wasp one was when they were discussing how to get to the van. Evangeline Lilly, the Wasp, was like, we're on it, Cap. To me, that was like a nice throwback to Ant-Man and the Wasp, where he was talking to Hope about, Captain America, we called him Cap. All our friends call him Cap. And I thought that was just a nice throwback from Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Those were nice moments. Because like now she's like, I'm part of the club, yay! But also, and I think John Roca brought this up on the Collider Heroes review. He mentioned when Scott Lang says to Cassie, "You got so big," in a way that's kind of a little tease for stature, because we could get into this later, but I'm just going to say it now. I have felt like for the longest time that one of the things that we're going to be setting up through this movie for Phase 4 was the Young Avengers. And what do we have coming up? We have a Hawkeye TV series where someone's going to be taking up the Kate Bishop mantle. Is it someone named Kate Bishop, or is it Hawkeye's daughter? I
think it's going to be Hawkeye's daughter, because if you remember the opening scene,
I think it's Lila.
Biz Clint does call his daughter Hawkeye at one stage, so I do think it's going to be her.
True. but what I'm unsure of is the person who played the person who played Hawkeye's daughter was actually I think it was Anthony Russo's real life daughter. So
Yeah.
I don't know if she will pursue that role for the TV series or if they will find someone else. But with that and with us now having a very older Cassie Lang, I just feel like they're setting us up for the Young Avengers, and that excites me. That excites me so damn much. Especially
I also love the A-Force moment. Like, was like, how did Wasp get there so fast when she was with the van with Scott? And I was like, well, you got there quick.
well, let's see here. When you're tiny, people hit you less, so therefore you can really avoid all that traffic in the air and just get where you need to be. Zaddeus, two of your favorite moments, please.
Yeah, there was a couple of nitpicky moments I might have with the movie, but really nitpicky moments. But one of my favorite moments was just kind of includes all the how the way they were able to move men comedy in with the with all the seriousness. And again, with after my second viewing today, it made me crack up again whenever Spider-Man during the battle, he's like, okay, activate instant kill mode. And then he just started going off with his like arms. And if you remember back in Spider-Man Homecoming, he was like, when Karen was asking him, like, should I activate instant kill mode and talking about vaporizing people, he's like, no, calm down. But Peter realized that, okay, this is the moment that we need to activate instant kill mode. And you just saw him going off with his last and just killing all the warriors of Thanos. But another one of my favorite moments, and I appreciate this moment more. Of course, there's some of the moments that got that everybody has mentioned already, like A-Force and stuff and Avengers Assemble. But it was a moment, and I kind of reckon this, and I kind of think about this when I watch other movies. Whenever I bring up, okay, like this hero is fighting this battle over here. Why is there never another hero? I know they're in the same world, but why are they not helping out with this big battle when it's supposed to be a big end of the world battle? However, in this movie, we did see in 2012's New York, while the Avengers were fighting the Chitauri, and even though we had no idea about Doctor Strange or anything at that time, we saw that the Ancient One was fighting off the Chitauri invasion too, doing her little spells and stuff on top of the Sanctum Sanctorum, which I thought was, thank you, guys. Thank you for at least, I feel like I feel like the directors were doing that for me. Like, okay, this shows like we got all of our major heroes down there, but we still have some other heroes within the world that's protecting, doing what they can also, which is a pretty damn cool moment.
I like that because I hadn't really thought of that, again, because I've only seen the movie one time so far. But yeah, like that was kind of a question of like, even Captain Marvel kind of answered it at like the beginning of the movie. Where have you been, and where have all these other heroes been while we've been protecting Earth? Simply put, there are other places that need protecting that you can't be there for, and they need people. So here we are. Here am I protecting all the other planets out in space, and here's the Ancient One helping out on the rooftop of the Sanctum Sanctorum, just making sure that no alien ships go through the roof. And so yeah, I like that you brought that up. For me, so much of the best moments that haven't already been mentioned involved Captain America and Thor. Like, for starters, America's ass.
How
great was
that?
Yes. Then you throw in that scene where he accidentally sneaks into Peggy's office in the past. And he has like a Jim Halpert looking through the blinds moment of like, there's my girl. I'm so close. I'm so close to what I've wanted for 70 years. And all I have to do is open this door, and I can't, because that will mess up the fabric of the timeline, at least in the way that we've explained how it will be screwed up. But you get the idea. And then, the way a lot of things happened in this movie. There was so much going on that the things that you could have predicted if there was less going on, you didn't really think about until they actually happened because you had so many things distracting you.
Mm.
And like, I did not see Cap picking up Mjolnir because there were so many other things keeping my vision. So like when because I think we all had to know that eventually it was going to come because they teased it in Age of Ultron.
Mm-hmm.
But again, in this movie, there's so much happening over here, over here, over here, over here, over here, over here, that when all of a sudden you see the hammer start to fly and it enters Cap's hand, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
like perfect misdirection. Although they didn't really like swerve us or anything, it's just like, here's the card, here's something else happening. Wah! Like that good.
Yeah, that was one of the moments in the movie that probably got one of the loudest pops in my first screening of it. That moment, and then of course the Avengers #1. But Jesus Christ, people were screaming, clapping, and hollering whenever they saw Cap with the hammer. Because at first, I know myself, I thought it was just going back to Thor. That maybe it knew Thor needed him, so it was just gonna fly back to him. But then once everybody saw Cap with, just crazy.
Guys, we have someone in the chat, and it is someone from my college, Mr. Nick Hill. How you doing, Nick? Good to see you.
Nick.
And he says in the chat, Cap picked up Mjolnir because he was able to let go of the secret of Tony's parents getting killed by Bucky. Once he let that loose, he became worthy.
I 100% agree with you, Nick. I completely agree. That was the main reason why he couldn't pick it up in the Age of Ultron. And why he could pick it up now.
I always assumed that he could pick up during Age of Ultron, but he didn't because he didn't want to hurt Thor's feelings. Like, he was still like a super nice guy. He didn't want Thor to he wanted Thor to keep his ego.
No, because listen, he was able to nudge it with two hands. If he wanted to, but he had to use two hands to nudge it, not one hand, two. Like, if it was one hand,
how hard is it to have two hands and go pretend to go lift it? Like, nope, can't do it.
I simply see it as.
I think, because again, Age of Ultron is one of my favorite movies of the world. For who hates me, but he was actually trying to pick up, and you see him struggling with it, and you see the worry across Thor's face, or at least that's what we thought at that time. It was worry, but yeah. It is interesting. It's an interesting point that Cap is a nice guy, and he wouldn't want to do that. But I don't think that was the case in Ultron. But
fair point.
And also, I'm going to combine two moments into one, just so we can move on. The family moments when Thor gets to have that conversation with his mother, and when we first see the reveal of Morgan Stark. Both of those scenes were heart-wrenching, because when it comes to Morgan Stark and we see her introduction, that's like when we first realize, okay, here are the stakes for Tony. Here's what he has to lose if we decide to go through with this plan. And it's by the way, Morgan Stark is a unique Easter egg in that it's a callback to the dream he had in Infinity War, where he dreamt of having a son named Morgan, and the name Morgan comes from a comic book character, Morgan Stark, Tony's evilly corrupt banker uncle, who tries to destroy him. So hopefully Morgan Stark in this universe doesn't try to kill anyone in the name of money, but I don't think that will happen.
Give me a cheeseburger.
No.
I love you.
That was a very sweet moment right there. That the whole Easter eggs. But speaking about what you said about Rene Russo, Nico with Thor and his mom, the first moment it was sweet. The second moment, seeing it again today, it just that damn near brought me to tears, and more this time than it did the first time I saw it. I felt like the first time I was too caught up in Thor's silliness and stuff. Like, this is always my favorite show. I don't know what you're talking about. I love this show always, but just the moment of seeing how Mama gonna keep it real with him. He's like, you failed. Yes, you're a failure. Yeah, you have. He's like, oh, that's a little bit harsh, but your mama's keeping it real with him, but still letting him know that still finds a way to motivate him that he just needs to he's still a smart being, and that he can get through this, and he can make a way out of this thing. She knows. I feel like Renee knew that something was going to happen to her eventually, or Frigga. I need to stop calling her Renee, but it's just it was a very sweet moment with her and Thor, and just it was great to see Renee Russo back in this movie. Thor: The Dark World is still a crap movie, but god damn it, I do miss her.
By the way,
the
eat a salad joke was like the most motherly thing you could have put in there, and it worked just so well. And by the way, that brings up another great moment of Thor holding both Stormbreaker and Mjolnir hand in hand, like
dual wielding.
Because I know that's also a bit from the comics. I can't remember which particular issue, but yeah, like eventually there is a point where he holds both the axe and the hammer at once, truly showing how worthy he happens to be. We also have Sean Sandberg in the chat. The family moment that first made him tear up was when Scott got to see Cassie for the first time after 5 years, a favorite of Richard's as well. And Nick Hill, he asks, can we petition to shorten the word cheeseburger to churger?
Churger.
I don't know where he heard that in the movie, but interesting. Thank you, Nick. Okay, so we've mentioned our favorite parts, or at least some of them, because there's so many things to like about this movie and love about this movie. Let's go into some of the things I don't want to say things we dislike, but things we would have maybe preferred had been done differently. And I'll start. I have very few gripes with this movie. I enjoy it very, very much. All things about it. The one thing I'm unsure of, Brie Larson's shorter haircut for the 5-year jump.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, I know that's another comic book pull. It just looked a little weird on her in that moment, like kind of soccer momish, and not in a good way.
You know, Brie Larson, boo boo. If you watch this ever, if somebody brings this to you, don't let Nico get you down. No, you look beautiful. I applaud that haircut. Damn it, you look amazing to me.
I had no problems with the haircut. I thought it looked okay.
Yeah, and you know what? It's not just the haircut, but I've seen a lot of people talk bad about Brie Larson in both the movies, Captain Marvel and this movie. Again, haircut aside, which I love. You do you, boo. But like I mean, Captain Marvel. I think she did fine in both movies, and Captain in her standalone movie. And in this movie, she was in the movie as long as she needed to be. She couldn't be in the whole movie. She'd be too OP for that.
See, if it was if it was the mohawk with the side shaved, I would have been perfectly fine with that. But in this case, I don't know. It didn't really work for me. But you know, I've been a defender of hers for like I loved Captain Marvel. Like I thought it was a very, very fun movie. It follows the MCU formula. But I still feel like it's
Marvel,
a very
from your
enjoyable
discussion,
movie.
does she need the helmet to breathe in space or not? Apparently she doesn't. I thought she always needed the helmet to breathe in space.
I think it's just a matter of like going into battle. Like sometimes she'll wear it, sometimes she won't. But I think it's just a matter of like when does she need it for battle.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think she needs the helmet because I think it's one of those cases like because she's part Kree, she can sort of be in space without needing it.
Yeah, that is a good question though, because I feel like it's probably more just kind of an evolution of her ability of maybe her power. She now knows that she doesn't need the helmet or need. Because I do remember in Captain Marvel, she used to have like a little blue face mask. I think that would cover her mouth in space and stuff, but in this movie, it definitely wasn't there. So I think it was just a definition of her powers. And probably also the helmet was probably more recognition of her what did they call Star Force? Was it Star Force in Captain Marvel? Maybe more of her Star Force costume, I think.
Another thing I'll bring up, and now this one I was uncertain of at first, and then it kind of grew on me with time and explanation from others. I wasn't sure how I felt about Fat Thor, but then after a while, people gave their thoughts of like, sometimes when people suffer a depression, they go through it in unique ways, and sometimes they'll stress eat, and in Thor's case, stress drink, and he drank a lot. Even going as far as to yell at someone who's just playing Fortnite with Korg, and now. So after a while, I became more okay with Lebowski Thor, but initially I was just like, not sure how I feel about it. Simply because like I think I was focusing more on like, does Chris Hemsworth look good fat, and I wasn't totally sure. But I was overthinking things, so that grew on me over time.
And I mean, it's probably going to be a new cosplay. You're going to see it kind of conventions now, but especially for some fat people, is like there's very characters we can portray about being like, oh, you're too fat to be Captain America, you're too fat, and they're like, well, now we're not too fat to be Thor. We can just be fat.
There we go. All you need is a gut.
And I just thought of this now, so. We can discuss it a little bit more later, but at the end we see Thor joining the Guardians of the Galaxy, now forming sort of the Asgardians of the Galaxy, or reforming them. And that makes sense to me, because if they're introducing Adam Warlock in Guardians 3 in a couple years, then they're going to need someone with as much power as Thor to sort of make things an even playing field against someone like Adam Warlock. So that's something to think about. But now, Zadd, some of the things you either disliked or wish could have been done a little differently.
There wasn't a lot of things, like really at all, things I disliked at all. I will say this upon second viewing. Well, first of all, when I first went to go see the movie, I read a little article online, like when are the best times to take a bathroom break. It was like there were 2 moments that they pointed out was the best time to take it, and then make sure you're there for the whole last hour of the movie. And after today, after seeing it again, I do think there's parts of the movie that after you see it the first time, good. You definitely watch everything. But when you see on your rewatch, there was a moment where Hulk was in the diner when they first went to go meet Bruce after Tony had turned him down, and they're having that little Hulk fan moment, like some kids come over to greet the Hulk and stuff like that, get his autograph and stuff. It's funny the first time. Today, when it came to that moment, I said, okay, I don't need to see this again. I went to go use the restroom. I got me an icy, drunk it outside for a little bit, and made my way back inside the theater. By the time Tony arrived back to the Avengers facility, and my thing is, again, it's not that I didn't like it, but there's just some points the second time where, it was necessary the first time, but not necessary to see it again. But I think everything up to the time after the time heist moment and on, and especially the first moment with Clint and his family, is definitely must-see material. But there's some parts in that middle, which is in that first hour or first hour and a half, it's like, okay, yeah. But nothing I really didn't dislike about the movie.
So basically, the Professor Hulk scene eating eggs is kind of like the bathroom break scene in your eyes.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%.
That's fair. That's fair. And who knows? I might feel the same way upon second viewing, whenever that second viewing finally comes. But I still like it for what it was. Like that, because that's Hulk finally being able to interact with society in all of his forms, not having to worry about going rogue and smashing a bunch of children. Like, he can take their picture and give them autographs now. And I just thought of this. One of the things from both the Incredible Hulk and Age of Ultron, Hulk can't have sex, or at least he couldn't have sex because of you don't So now I'm wondering, now that he's figured out how to merge the two, does he not have to worry about murdering someone in bed anymore?
Well, the person he wanted to is now. We don't know. His heart may be broken now. So.
Did Hulk have other girlfriends in the comics? Because I doubt Betty Ross is coming back, and now that Natasha's dead.
Well, hell, they brought Natalie Portman back. I never thought I'd see her ass again. So, Liv Tyler, hey, good luck. Maybe.
So I've actually read that Natalie Portman didn't actually film anything for this movie.
Yeah, that
It might
was
have
just a
been left
deleted
over.
scene from Thor 2.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, hey, that's better.
By the way, from Nick Hill in the chat, he says Hulk got some gamma ween.
Gamma weave or weed?
Ween. W-E-E-N, as in wiener.
Oh, wow.
Richard, you've mentioned before we went on air that you had some plot holes you wanted to address, or plot holes that you think
it
are
was
plot
like
holes.
it was just very nitpicky stuff. Like, when they're going to travel back in time, when Black Widow says, if we time this right, we can get 3 stones in 2012. There was also, you could have got 3 stones in 2014 because the Reality Stone was with the Collector during that time. And I wish they kind of explained why they didn't go to 2014. We wouldn't have had that Frigga moment, which I'm more than likely happy with. I just wish there would have been an explanation why they couldn't go get the Reality Stone in 2014. It would save, it would give more manpower.
Here's my thing. Here's my thought, and that's that simply either Thor was too drunk to remember that the stones were there, or simply put, the 2 Guardians that were there, Rocket and Nebula, and I mean, when I say in there, I mean in Avengers headquarters having this discussion with them. Nebula, I don't think, knew that they were with the Collector, and Rocket, I think he only thought that
Rocket knew. Thor and Rocket knew because in Infinity War, because they were discussing that they had a Reality Stone to Collector nowhere.
Rocket knew about the Power Stone. He didn't know about.
And he knew about the Reality. That's how they went to nowhere in Infinity War. That's how they found out to go to nowhere to stop Thanos from getting the Reality Stone because Thor told them.
Well, yeah, that's true. In Infinity War, he did tell him that.
But then again, I think it was a case of the people there, and Thor probably didn't remember, because I believe that in one of the post-credit scenes, it was 2 of the Warriors 3 that took the Reality, was shown giving the Reality Stone to the Collector.
The Collector,
and they obviously did, so they couldn't say
that Thor knew about it.
Yeah, well,
I'm saying, yeah.
Sif is still alive though.
Thor was also too drunk to remember as well. So,
but Rocket was.
But what you're bringing up a good point though about the stones being how you brought up the plot holes about the stones and going back at certain times, because there's also the moment when just kind of picking back off Rich's statement though, is when Captain America goes back in time to deliver all the stones back to where they rightfully are. Isn't the time where he's bringing the Space Stone? Well, no, technically he's bringing back the Time Stone and then the Mind Stone. The Space Stone is still missing at that time. Am I incorrect or not? Because that's the time in 2012 Loki took off with the Space Stone at that point. So,
but they've still
they went back to the 70s for that.
Yeah, they went back to the 70s to get the Space Stone again.
Oh yeah, I know that, but I'm just talking about when Captain went back to go place the stones where they rightfully came from. So, but when he had to go back to that same era, to give back the Mind Stone to the bad guys, the strike team and stuff, and had to give the Time Stone back to the Ancient One, pretty much.
So,
I mean, also that's actually my second gripe is, the Space Stone was the Tesseract and the Mind Stone was the Scepter. Where they put the Scepter and making the cube again? Because they would have to make the cube again, and they would have to make the Scepter again for the Mind Stone.
Yeah.
So, well, simply put, they could use the stones to remake the previous appearances of what they looked like. But so earlier today, Entertainment Weekly's YouTube channel. My cousin Anthony Bresnikan, who is a reporter for that particular company, he put out a video explaining sort of the confusion of like how did the time travel work in this particular movie, and his explanation was it's not time travel, it's dimension hopping, and
That's
so
true.
for everything that happens, they're creating a different dimension, and the point of bringing the stones back right before they took the stones is to sort of erase those dimensions so there are no branches that are going to become unsafe. And that's why at the end of the movie, Thanos and the Black Order from 2014 can be erased in the snap without having any consequences to the Thanos of 2019 that was murdered at the beginning of the film, because those are Thanos from two different dimensions.
Yeah.
Thanos Prime was murdered at the beginning, and let's say Thanos X was murdered at the end, or snapped away, if you will. So that kind of resolves a little bit of the plot holes, if you want to call them that, regarding the time travel / dimension hopping. There's still the matter of where did Loki go with the version of the Space Stone that he took off with? And again, I think we've heard that's how they're doing the Loki series on Disney Plus, or at least that's how they're setting it up, is with the fact that that version of Loki is still kicking and breathing, and he just happened to get away with that stone, and now we have a TV show. So that could be one of the things.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we probably get something to do with Captain America as well, because the Russos said in a question and answer thing that they did in China recently, because they talked about the whole Cap taking the stones back and coming back as an old man. They said that the Cap as an old man was from the different dimension in which he lived out the rest of his life. Because obviously when he went back in time to live out the rest of his life, he created a new dimension by doing that.
So yeah, it's complex, but it's still explainable. It's still explainable. Mm-hmm. And that's another favorite scene of mine, by the way, is when Cap passed on the shield to Sam. I was under the impression that both of them were going to get shields, both Sam and Bucky, and we were going to get the Captain America Corps. But I'm fine with Sam getting the shield because I feel like out of the two, despite the fact that Cap basically loves Bucky to death, he knows that Bucky probably doesn't feel comfortable taking on that role right now, because still you got to wonder, like, is his brain still not totally right? Or does he feel like, he's a wanted criminal still in the United States? So, like, is he going to be comfortable taking up the role of Captain America when he's wanted? So,
they actually did a little discussion with Anthony Mackie. He it was before the movie came out, but he says that Falcon's not going to be Captain America. Like, he'll still be Falcon. He may just have the shield. He's not officially taking the role of Captain America, because the show is Falcon and Winter Soldier in the Disney TV stream.
Yeah, but that could just be Anthony Mackie putting a smoke screen over to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Because I do believe that they probably are going to have Falcon take on the Captain America moniker, and then all they just do is rename that show, because.
And also,
probably,
Richard, pay attention to what you just said yourself. You said Anthony Mackie says that he's still Falcon and he just has the shield. Maybe that's how Falcon, the character, sees himself right now. He doesn't see himself yet as Captain America, and because, what does he say at the end of the movie? He still says it feels like it belongs to someone
I'm just saying,
else.
You're saying that he's going to be like the new Captain America. I'm saying not right now. That's what I meant to say. Like, he's not right now going to be Captain America.
Yeah, definitely not yet. Again, just like Bucky, Bucky, I don't think was worthy of being Captain America. Like, definitely not yet. Even if his mind is gone, but like you mentioned, Sam has to I feel like has to grow into the role, like you're saying, Richard, and he knows that towards the end. And I think even Cap says I'm not sure if he says give it time or something, or it's like something you will be, or something whenever old man Steve is talking to him. So I'm pretty sure they both realize that. Okay, you got this shield for now. You'll grow into it pretty much. But
I mean, who
yeah,
knows? Captain America was
I'm
cursing in this movie. He was not being very Captain America like. He was cursing.
But also, to piggyback off of another thing, the title of the show is Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But last I checked, we were calling Bucky White Wolf. So yeah,
was that just T'Challa that called him the White Wolf though? Because I don't think I've heard anybody else like.
Yeah, that was just T'Challa that could, but then again, no, he didn't. No one now was around at that time either. So
I think like even the Wakandan children were calling him White Wolf. So essentially, that became his like new role while he was there. It was kind of like, I'm putting this Winter Soldier character behind me, and I'm becoming something different, something better, and something I can be proud of. So like at least that's the way I saw it. But then again, Winter Soldier is the more recognizable name. So therefore, it would make sense to market the show that way, because like, oh, Falcon and White Wolf, we're going to the zoo. But
you almost sounded like Oliver Queen for a moment right there. Talk about how I used to be this, but now I am the White Wolf. I used to be doing this.
Can we get a Disney Plus series of Wakanda just getting a Starbucks? That'd be a great show.
There's so many series I want to see adapted from this movie, because there's so much I want to know. But we can talk about that in a little bit. But yeah.
Yes, just to answer a question from Nick Hill in the chat. He does point out White Wolf is a nod to the comics. I am aware of that. And yes, White Wolf is the adopted older brother of T'Challa in the comics. I believe the first name of that character is Hunter. But they decided to switch it up a little bit with the lore in the MCU, which I'm perfectly fine with, because it would have been weird to have to explain, like, why is this random British white person an important figure in Wakanda with only so little time to actually go through that backstory. So yeah, it made sense to give Bucky that title instead. But Malcolm, things you would have changed or things you didn't like as much?
I mean, for me, it's just a whole bunch of nitpicks. Because I mean, I always thought it was just Natalie Portman popping in for a small part. When I didn't realize it was a deleted scene, but regardless, I would have loved to see her back in a scene, maybe seeing Thor or something. I would have loved to see them bring back Betty and somehow, and like, it's just some of the supporting characters that were missing. There's like, for me, probably the biggest character that was missing, which we know is still alive out in the MCU, because as Lady Sif has just sort of vanished into thin air in the movie.
I agree with that.
Because like the last movie she was in was For the Dark World. We haven't seen her in the movies since then. We've seen her in a few random episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but she's just completely vanished. Because after Infinity War, the Russos were asked like about the status of various characters, and they asked like about Lady Sif, and they said that she wasn't dusted; she was still alive. So the fact that they didn't bring her into here was just weird. And leading into my other sort of nitpick is Valkyrie becoming the king of New Asgard kind of doesn't feel earned, because because we don't really spend a lot of time with Valkyrie at all in both Ragnarok and Endgame. Because I mean, like, while we actually had some great moments in the battles, like to go from the drunk from Thor Ragnarok to King at the end of Endgame just seems a too quick of a change for her. I would have loved them that
In-
to sort of be a cameo from Lady Sif, because I think Lady Sif is probably more likely to take over it for now.
In fairness, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but there was a 5-year time jump, and in a way, it kind of reminds me of Rey and Kylo Ren in a way of like, Rey had all this darkness in her, and Kylo Ren, despite trying to be so dark, he had all this light in him. And as we get through The Last Jedi, they slowly start to become more neutral, and then split off opposite directions. Rey is super light, Kylo Ren is super dark. And in a way, from Ragnarok to the end of this movie here, where are we? Like we have Valkyrie being the drunk and Thor trying to be the noble king. And then as we go through these movies and we cross paths here at the end of Endgame, here's Valkyrie. She's right where Thor was. And here's Thor. He's right where Valkyrie was when we first met her. That's true. So Thor is in a rock bottom position, and he obviously knows that I'm not in a good place to be king right now. You have been sort of watching over this place while I've been cooped up, yelling at people who are playing Fortnite. You know what the needs of our people are. So you should be the ruler of New Asgard for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so that makes sense to me. That makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I get that. Like, what I was meaning by my statement is like, I don't. It's not that I don't like the fact Valkyrie is king, because I do like Valkyrie as a character. I just feel like if that's the way they were going to go, I would have loved to see sort of more scenes with Falcon full talking. That kind of shows how much he's changed in that 5 years gap between Infinity War and Endgame, just sort of to show how much he has actually changed.
I can agree with you on that, Malcolm, because there's a lot of things I would love to see. I mentioned this a little bit while before, but I would love to see how certain parts of the world dealt with that 5 years from after the snap, or the decimation, I think they called it, to when basically all their people came back. So like that'd be something very interesting if it has to be in a comic form or a TV form. Those quick shorts that Marvel used to do. I would like to see like something about like how people had to deal with it. Deal with the snap, because we see New York is dead in this movie. I think that was New York. Yeah, and it's just that's an amazing scene. It's like an Armageddon movie but in Armageddon movies, like everything's obliterated, but you just see ships and everything's in the harbor. City Field, I think it was just demolished or trash. The streets were trash. It's an amazing look at a horrible future, and I would love to know more about how people were getting around, and just hoping that everybody was like crying over dessert or like crying to their salad and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But you know what the interesting thing is, though, is that you mentioned how dead New York was, and then we get this little bit of, then here comes Cap trying to cheer Widow up, and he brings up that he saw dolphins in the waters.
Whales.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought it was dolphins, but he sees whales in the water because, all the fuel that gets and there's less garbage, and therefore the waters are cleaner for the whales to actually swim in. By the way, global warming is a real thing, so please be kind to the environment. Go for a walk or ride your bike or take the bus instead of driving your Hummer. But the PSA aside, so there were a couple bright spots to kind of like make Thanos the version that we see in Infinity War. Like, yeah, he did have a point. To an extent, he did kind of have a point. He didn't have to go all genocidal for it, but yeah, like the less people means more resources around. So,
I have a question for the panel, real quick. Did anybody have a problem with how? And I've seen this being pitched around online and stuff. Did anybody have a problem with older Thanos, like pretty much just being taken down by the Avengers, but yet 2014 Thanos being able to whoop Captain America's ass, Thor's ass, Iron Man's ass, even without the Infinity Gauntlet and stuff.
Well, here's if I can start off. So older Thanos, when they kill him, it's 2 days removed from the incident where he snapped, literally.
Mm-hmm.
So like he's still weak from the effects of the Infinity Stones. He's still weak from trying to destroy the stones with the stones, but even then he's still got a lot of fight in him, just not enough. He's at his weakest point here, and that's when they get him down. But young Thanos, for starters, he has this angry edge to him. Like, he hasn't done all the years of patience. He sees that all the stones are in one place now, and he can just go get them. He's ready to knock some heads loose. And to throw in the fact that he has this giant sword, this giant double-bladed sword, and he's like, this is a cold, menacing, brutal Thanos. Not like the calculated one that we see in the movie prior.
Yeah.
And I mean, what were you gonna say, Richard? All right, Malcolm.
And I mean, I didn't have a problem with that because it was kind of established at the start of Infinity War when Thanos took down Hulk without using these stones. That Thanos is a very strong son of a bitch, as it is anyway. So, I mean, it was already kind of established from Infinity War that he is very strong regardless.
I mean, I was also going to bring up the fact that during even Infinity War, he was battling a lot of people during that whole movie. He was fighting, and by the time he got to Captain America and Iron Man, all those people, like, mentally, like, he was exhausted because he had to literally kill his daughter, which he did love. He also had to fight the Hulk, fight Iron Man, the Guardians. And then he had to go to Cap. Like, even there was a lot of people. He's still strong, but he was tired. And going to the beginning of the movie, beginning of this movie, like, I don't think he even cared that if he died because he did his duty. He did what he was set out to do, which was.
Agree with that.
And as for why he kicked the other three ass, like 3 butts, you said it yourself. 2014's more hungrier, and also Thor's 5 years out of shape. He hasn't trained at all. Even I'm not talking about the fat Thor. I'm just talking the fact 5 years not training, not doing anything. That's gonna make you a little bit weaker, even with Stormbreaker.
And as you just mentioned, 2014 Thanos is a lot fresher in terms of an athletic standpoint because he hasn't been through all those grueling battles in the span of a few days that 2019 Thanos was. And Nick Hill just brought this up. 2014 Thanos also had his Uru armor, the same thing Mjolnir and Stormbreaker is made out of. It would have been difficult to get a blow on him. Now,
really,
I have to go through the MCU Wikipedia page to double check that because it's not really mentioned what his armor is made out of. Although now I think about it, Dimitri, if that's the Peter Dinklage's character's name. If I'm remembering correctly, like he might have constructed the armor for Thanos that we see in the movie. So who knows there?
Well, I mean,
Nick just said he could be wrong about. Sorry about that.
No, I mean, I think you're right about the armor because I think like it is kind of in the comics it is sort of mentioned, and I mean, like whether he actually made it willingly or Thanos just went there and forced him to forge it in his size or make it for him because, like, we knew he had the Infinity Gauntlet, so at Eitrees as well, because you saw the mold there. So Thanos could have easily just gone and stole it from Eitri as well. So
I want to talk about the character deaths that we had in this movie, and then where do we go from here in terms of Phase 4, and before that, Spider-Man Far From Home. But before we get to those, how do you guys feel about the fact that none of what happened in this movie would have happened if not for a rat stepping on a keyboard and Ken Jeong seeing Scott Lang waving in a security camera?
I
That
mean,
rat is
first
the
of all, like
real hero.
a lot of people still like complained about that. It's like it's not like it was like 5 weeks later or 2 months later that the rat happened to do it. It took 5 years for something like that to happen. Like random things happen like that all the time. Like I could play darts for like 3 months and finally get a bullseye. Maybe take me 2 years. But random things like that happen. Remember, it took them 5 years for a rat to do something right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with that. It was just for me, it was just really damn convenient. But I mean, that aside, I just thought it was funny. It was like the real hero of the movie is not the Avengers, not anyone else. It's the rat. The rat
Very
should
true.
be the next Avenger.
Splinter confirms MCU.
Oh Lord, Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, MCU crossover confirmed.
And actually, part of me wishes that it was actually a squirrel, because then it would
That would be dope.
led people to tease like, is Squirrel Girl going to be an MCU movies? Like,
They did shoot the pilot for Squirrel Girl and the New Warriors, and it just couldn't get picked up by a TV station. So here's to hoping that they eventually debut that show somewhere, maybe on Disney Plus. I don't know, but I damn it, I want to see Squirrel Girl. I want to see that show come to life that they worked hard on. But nevertheless, let's talk about the endings for the three characters' arcs: Tony Stark / Iron Man, Captain America Steve Rogers, and Black Widow Natasha Romanoff. First, let's go into Black Widow, because I don't think any of us really expected this to happen. And, granted, it's not until they actually got onto Vormir that I remembered and realized, oh, shoot, one of them has to die to get the stone. I completely forgot about this, because you're having such a fun time and you're getting so many things thrown your way at once that it's hard to keep track of everything going on. And then all of a sudden you have that moment of clarity of like, oh no, which one's it
That's what I
gonna
loved about this
be?
movie. Like there's quite a few times where you should have realized, but you didn't because you're just so into the movie. Like with the final battle, like we remember he did the snap, but I completely forgot, and then you hear on your left. Sorry, go on.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Zed.
No, as for Black Widow, yeah, it was when they first got to Vormir, and basically that made me think like, one of these two are gonna have to die. Do they know that? And clearly they didn't. And I fully thought, I wasn't surprised when Black Widow did, but I thought it was gonna be Hawkeye just because he was so far from the Clint that he used to be. Which also, just time out, when Black Panther finally acknowledged Hawkeye as Clint, great moment from Civil War. Also, like he was like, "Hey, I'm Clint. I don't care," and just whooped his ass. But still, Clint got some respect in this movie. But put some respect on his name. But yeah. I thought it was going to be Barton that had to be killed just because he was so far removed from the character, from the person that his family loved. But it was nice to see, and it was actually very emotional to see Black Widow, aka Natasha, end up dying, and also amazing effects with the blood, because I actually saw the blood this time, which seems kind of macabre, but when she fell down, you can see the blood streaming off. Like, wow.
That race to literally get to the bottom of that cavern, it's interesting because if you look at the motivations, you could arguably make that there's a difference of having something to die for and having nothing to live for. And in Clint's case, he's approaching this from the perspective of, my family's gone. What do I have left to live for? Nothing. Meanwhile, Natasha is approaching this from, I have something to die for. I've had all this red in my ledger for the longest time, and I've been trying to wipe it out. I can do that by sacrificing myself for this stone and giving my friends a fighting chance. Give the universe a fighting chance. And so, it's kind of a noble end, to her story arc, and it also makes you wonder, like, where the hell are they going to go with her solo movie? Like, are we going to follow her after, like, suddenly reappearing from Soul World, from inside the stone, along with baby Gamora, or is she done for good, and we're getting a prequel with Florence Pugh, is it, from Fighting with My Family?
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a prequel because I think they did say, like, when they announced it, they said it was going to be an origin story for the character. Like, for me with Black Widow's death, like, when they landed on Vormir, it's like, yeah, Black Widow's dying, and like I knew because, like, with the announcement of the Hawkeye TV series, like, and the synopsis actually read Hawkeye trains his daughter to take on the mantle. It's like, well, they're not going to do the synopsis written that way if he's going to die in Endgame. But yeah,
Good point.
and it's just one of those things that I wish they had announced. Like, that they could have just announced the Hawkeye series, but just left it at that without doing the log line. But they did, and there's not much. But I mean, I found it. I did tear up at this moment because I do love the character of Black Widow, and once again, the fact that they managed to have her, like, in pretty much the same position that Gamora was, like, in when she died in Infinity War, like, it's just the symmetry between both those shots are just uncanny and amazing. I mean, I do imagine that they probably filmed both of those at the exact same time, just to get it exactly right.
I'm now envisioning both Zoe Saldana and Scarlett Johansson of, like, okay, your turn, you fall next.
but I mean, what I think the Black Widow solo movie is going to be, it's going to be, we're finally going to find out what the bloody hell happened in Budapest. And I the way I was kind of imagining it might be framed is like Hawkeye telling his daughter the story of Black Widow, and of this person that meant so much to him, like, before he met his wife in the movie. But I do think it's probably going to be framed in that sort of way, like him telling the story of Black Widow to his daughter, and then have a flashback sort of thing.
Richard.
I mean, that scene was super emotional. Like, it was so good. Like, Hawkeye's my favorite Avenger. I was like, oh crap, is Hawkeye gonna die? My favorite Avenger's gonna die finally. They teased this in Age of Ultron. I mean, Black Widow she did such a great job. Like, both Jeremy Renner and Scarlett Johansson did extremely. I think this is like my favorite movie with them appearing. Like, favorite character moments, just character development was from this movie. I still have no idea what the hell the Soul Stone does in the MCU, other than it makes you kill your best friend or the thing you love.
Yeah.
That's all right. I feel like it does. Like, what does a Soul Stone actually do?
I mean,
it
makes you
seems like
cry.
a really evil thing.
Well, here's something that just popped into my head, because again, we got to go back to what we were talking about with Guardians 3 and Adam Warlock being teased. The Soul Stone, which Gamora is supposedly trapped in or has now been freed from, the Soul Stone is a big part of Adam Warlock's lore. So it makes me wonder, like, does Adam Warlock go berserk? And now that they have the Soul Stone, do they use it to sort of control him and contain him? Like, who knows? That's probably why they've left it so vague, is because they want to they want to keep you guessing so they can explore the lore for a future storyline that will benefit from it more.
I just imagine Black Widow and Gamora just in the Soul Stone playing solitaire or Grow Fish. They're like, do you have any clues? And
I could see that
as
too.
for my prediction for the Black Widow movie, I do believe it's going to be a prequel. However, I also believe during this movie, she's going to encounter another female who, I forgot the character's name in the comics, but who eventually takes up the other mantle of Black Widow. And I believe after the movie, it's going to fast forward to her, or like a funeral or something, and she's going to become the new Black Widow, whoever this person's going to be. Like, because there's 2 Black Widows in the comics. It's not just Natasha Romanoff.
And there's also the Red Widow now.
The Crimson Widow, I think, is the one you're thinking of.
No. So
It's
there's
like
the
Yolanda or something.
there's the evil Crimson Widow, and then there's sort of
Mhm.
this new character that was recently introduced a couple years ago called I believe Ava, or is it Ayla or Ava or Lova?
Yolanda?
Is the
Yeah.
no
Ava or Lova.
yeah, Ava Orlova. She is the Red Widow. She is essentially sort of this young character who, kind of much like Natasha, sort of got thrust into the Red Room program without wanting to be, and now she's just trying to like find herself. And so that's just a theory I have, because like there was a young adult novel written about that character, so there is lore to be explored, and
Yeah.
it's just a matter of where they go with it if they decide to go places with it. But yeah, Black Widow. I enjoyed Scarlett Johansson's portrayal of her.
Mhm.
I haters shut up. She was not useless. She served a lot of purpose to these movies, and she essentially served one of the biggest purposes of all in this movie. In that her sacrifice resulted in half of the universe being brought back to existence after it being snapped away. So it's going to be weird not having her in this universe anymore, but it was a fitting end to her story.
I just
Now
wish they would have
let's
given her a fight scene because I would love to see her cross scissor punch one last time. Like all her movies, she's done the little scissor like flip. We didn't get in this
The
one.
little, yeah, the little hurricane runner or scissor. Yeah, I know what you mean.
now let's get into Steve Rogers, who didn't die, but he's now an old man, and he has given up the shield. So he essentially got to live, like after all that, after everything he's been through, he finally got to live out the life he wanted to live out. Which,
Is it bad that? Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's. I feel like it's a very poetic ending.
Yeah.
I can agree with poetic. I will say this is probably one of the moments that touched me the least. I'm like, oh, look at Cap. He went to go. I knew he was gonna. I had a feeling he was gonna stay behind. I personally thought he went back to the '70s and like to hang with Peggy, but I wouldn't be surprised if he went all the way back to the '40s in his time into that separate timeline to live a life with Peggy and stuff. So I was fine with it. I'm like, yeah, because like I think they said it was Loki that said in Avengers that he's a man out of time. Captain America hasn't been really living as an Avenger. He's pretty much been the soldier since 2011, or since his first Avenger movie, and up until 2023 when this movie ended. Yeah, I was more happy for him than I was like, oh, he's an old man now. He's about to die, but I'm not saying that I didn't like it because I enjoyed it a lot. It's just that I was happy for him. Repeat myself a little bit. What you say, Malcolm?
Malcolm.
I mean, yeah, I mean, like this moment, when Cap was taking a long time to come back, is like, oh shit, has something happened to him? And it's like, especially when they said he jumped past the things like I did, and then very conveniently someone notices this old guy sitting on the bench, like when they're all arguing about it, like they all go. Turns out that Cap is like just one of those ones that it's a fitting end. Like he finally got to get a life as Tony often told him to do. And it was just fitting. And I didn't really talk much about the whole shield passing before, but it's actually I do think it's more fitting that it was Sam that got the shield, it's not Bucky, because throughout the movies, Falcon's been more of the sidekick to Cap than Bucky was, but you didn't get a lot of sidekick action with Bucky and Cap together. It was more Falcon and Cap, especially in the Winter Soldier and stuff. So it is more fitting that it was Falcon that got it.
And you could make the argument that Bucky has kind of become more of the side character to Black Panther because of the roles he's had.
I can argue that.
So you pass on the mantles to who you trust, and Sam has always been the guy who Steve has never had a reason to distrust. Bucky, again, while being Steve's best friend, you gotta worry about him because just saying the right words in order will send him back into Manchurian Candidate mode, and you don't want that.
Even though I think it was the guys that How I Should Have Ended. So shout out to those guys. But I remember watching their How I Should Have Ended version of Captain America: Civil War. Why couldn't Bucky, whenever he got his hands free, just stick his fingers in his ear like la 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 la? I can hear you. I can hear you. I don't hear what you're saying. Like, yeah, like that could have been prevented. But then again, without that, we wouldn't have a great movie like Civil War. So
yeah. I mean, the one thing I do wish about the whole sort of Captain America doing the farewell to Sam was we got some kind of farewell moment when Sam sort of stepped back and Bucky came up to have a farewell moment with Cap as well. Because even though they had that moment before Steve went through the quantum tunnel and all that, I wish there was some kind like a moment at the end when he was revealed to be sitting on the park bench. A moment of those two as well would have been more nice fitting as well.
Question: do you think Bucky knew?
Yeah, I believe Cap told him.
I
That's
think
why he
so
says,
too,
"I'm gonna miss you, buddy."
Yeah, I saw that
says,
too.
"I'm gonna miss you, buddy."
Yeah, I called it this time. This time around, that Bucky said, "I'm gonna miss you, buddy," and he said, "Don't do anything stupid. You're taking all the stupid with you." Oh, chap. But yeah, that was very good.
Yeah, well, that, and I do think Bucky knew because he looked at Sam as like, "Go on," gave the nods like, "Yeah, he's waiting there for you."
Richard.
This was a very emotional moment because for me, my preference, Captain America has been my favorite standalone 3 movies. Like, I like it better than Iron Man, I love it better than Thor. I've loved every single Captain America movie. I love First Avenger. A lot of people don't. I do. And just seeing that,
it's very
like,
underrated. It's very
he
underrated.
fairly had his last dance with Peggy. The thing he wanted the most, I think, if anything, was like he had a date. The end of it, like the end of Captain America First Avenger, he had a date, and now he got it.
That's true.
And it was a great emotional scene. I love the farewell. My only question, like, I figured like he did go back in time. He just, shrank small so they couldn't see him on the platform, and then he just ran really quickly in his old man age to the bench. I'm kidding.
And I'm sorry, I keep coming up with questions, but in the Winter Soldier, did Peggy and I think it was the Winter Soldier when she was being interviewed, did she ever say her husband's name?
So,
No.
are we talking about old Peggy? Because she had dementia. She had dementia.
Well, no, not old Peggy, but there was a clip where Peggy Carter was being interviewed by somebody, and it was in a she was talking about I think it was in the museum whenever Cap first went to go see his whole exhibit and stuff, that they were playing a recording of Peggy, like young Peggy, talking about how she had kind of moved on since Captain America's death. And it's something I wish I could have saw before tonight, but I don't believe she ever mentioned her husband by name.
I think they had a plan with Agent Carter, and because the series got canceled after 2 seasons, they never got to really go through with it. So,
that's true.
And again, we're kind of trying to still figure out the dimension hopping stuff and like what is officially part of what timeline now as a result of that dimension hopping. But it makes me wonder, like, could Steve have been that husband? During the Battle of New York when the Chitauri first invaded, is there like an older version of Steve just hanging around and being like, "Okay, Peggy, time to go to the basement now while young me takes care of business with America's ass."
Peggy had a trophy husband. Go in the basement. Be quiet.
Yeah, I mean,
On your left, Steve. Wash the dishes. On your left.
Okay, so new person in the chat, the Armored Advocate, and it says Peggy never did. She just said that Steve saved the man who would become her husband, which hypothetically Steve did save himself numerous times since sacrificing himself mentally and physically. So
Very true.
yeah.
So open-ended. Okay.
Very open-ended.
So we got about
also talking about Agent Carter, the fact that James Darcy has now become the first character from Marvel TV to cross over into the movies is.
yes.
I didn't expect there would be him. I thought they would have put either Daisy Johnson or someone from Agents Shield into the movie.
Now, if I can go back and watch Avengers Endgame, and if I see Chloe Bennett anywhere on screen, I'm screaming. Like, that would be great. But yeah, that was somebody I thought, well, should have been on there. Like, Quake should have been somewhere in there, but yeah, they just like to toy with our emotions.
So we have about 8 minutes left before we hit the 90-minute mark, and that's kind of where I'd like to stop. So real quick, let's talk about Tony Stark. Then we'll talk about even more quicker things we hope to see with Far From Home, and then Phase 4, and then we'll get on out of here. So Tony Stark. When Morgan Stark was introduced at the beginning of this movie, that was a big tell for me that, oh no, he's gonna die, or at least I like. There was part of me that was still holding out hope, but like once they introduced the child, and that's when you were, and as I said before, that's when all the stakes are officially revealed for him. That's when you realize, oh no, he's not making it. The child's gonna be without a dad. Peter Parker's going to be babysitting in the next movie. And it was just a matter of like, how are you going to send him off? How are you going to send him off? Because like this is the guy who started this whole thing 10 years ago. Like Robert Downey Jr. resurrected his career with this role, and it now. This is, unless they decide to change something in the future, this is his last movie as this person, as this character. And his last words were the last words of his first movie, not counting end credit scenes, where he just says, "I am Iron Man," and then
snap.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Sacrifices himself for the fate of the universe. Has and the one thing is he could never stop. He could never stop trying to be a hero. And in that moment, Peter's not wanting him to go, but Pepper comes in and she's just like, "It's okay. We're all going to be fine. You can finally rest." And then as soon as that's the mother in her that we haven't gotten to see on screen, but we do know that she is a mother in real life, Gwyneth Paltrow, so she portrayed that scene very well. And then the moment Tony finally passes, that's when she breaks down. That's when the realization hits in. That's when all the emotion hits in. And then we get that funeral scene with literally everybody who's had a relationship of any kind with Tony Stark. Even Harley Keener, the potato gun kid, who's all grown up now, I kind of chuckled at that because I'm like, I wonder how many people are going to know who that kid is.
I was happy to see him back in the movie. Yeah, potato gun.
Dude, I first saw him. I thought they was the Quicksilver from the X-Men movies. I was like, wait, no, it doesn't make sense. Like, oh, it's the kid from Iron Man 3.
Yep, it's potato gun kid, and they finish it off fully with Morgan telling Happy, I want cheeseburgers. Happy's having that remembrance of wanting Burger King after he first came back from the Middle East. And Happy's just like, I'll get you all the cheeseburgers you want. And You know, I wonder what they're gonna do now with the family that Tony Stark has left behind, because we know that they still have a future technically with the Spider-Man stuff, depending on the contract situations. But this is Tony Stark's last hurrah, and it was a very emotional send-off. And I've talked enough. Zadd, your thoughts?
Well, first of all, this was the moment, and again, the first time viewing this is the moment where I had my mom on my other side of me because I introduced her to all this, but I'm over here have tears like being choked up, not saying a word, had tears streaming down my face. Glad I had the glasses on so nobody could see me crying, because it was just it was a sweet moment. It was tears streaming at that point, but when Pepper, like you mentioned before, when she gave him permission to go ahead and die, that's when it just like when you heard the little the little cough, when I had to just clear my throat so I wouldn't be congested. And even after seeing it again today, it still made me tear up, because it was just a beautiful moment. And just like Pepper had said earlier in the movie, one of my greatest failures was never getting you to stop. And Tony had mentioned that, hey, yo, this could be somebody else's problem. We don't have to deal with it anymore. We could just go upstairs or something and just go to sleep. But then she said, but would you rest? Would you rest though? And she just told him, now we're gonna be okay. You can rest. And that just made me boohoo like a baby the first time. Even brought tears back again. And how you mentioned how when you saw Morgan, that was kind of your telltale sign. For me, it was when Tony and Cap were back in the 1970s, when Tony was talking to his dad, and Howard Stark said something in the elevator like, I would rather my kid not be like me. And Tony was like, but what's wrong with that? He said, there's often been times where the greater good of the people have not outweighed my own self-interest, or something like that. So basically saying he's been a selfish little ass like most of his life. So he would hope that his kid wouldn't turn out to be like him. And that was the thing I said to me, like, oh shit, Tony's about to die in this movie, isn't he? And lo and behold, in a great way too.
And I'm actually glad you brought that up, because that's one of Tony's biggest things, is that he never really got closure regarding his father. Regarding his father, like the last time he saw his dad, they had a conversation that ended on bad terms, and so this was essentially his do-over. This is where he could finally get that closure. Being a father, explaining to his own father the joys of fatherhood that he was about to experience with him in this very unique paradox. But yeah, like he finally got the closure he needed to move on and be able to carry out that sacrifice that he did at the end of the movie. Like you know how Richard mentioned that, or rather it was Nick Hill in the chat who mentioned that when Steve confessed to Tony about Bucky killing Tony's parents, that was when Steve became worthy, because he was able to let it all loose. In that moment where he's having that conversation with his dad for the last time, that's when Tony essentially becomes worthy in his own right. Maybe not of the hammer, but he becomes worthy to make the sacrifice and finally be worthy of the rest that he has not given himself over the past decade or so.
Mm-hmm. What do you guys think, Richard?
That scene did make me tear up quite a bit. Just the combination of Tom Holland and Gwyneth Paltrow's emotional performance, and the fact that Tony's performance just looking so catatonic, I've seen it 3 times in theaters, and I've teared up every single time, just because all 3 of those actors did a tremendous job. Just did a tremendous job. Like, there's a dark part of me that's thinking, like, watching when everyone's getting dusted, it's like, did Bucky get dusted too? Remember, he still killed his mom. Slightly wondering if Tony was going to be vindictive, but he wasn't. He forgave, and he had the hero the hero, like, you know, he went out a hero, and that's all I gotta say. Great job.
Sorry, Malcolm. Just what you mentioned about I think you said that he had pretty much forgiven him. Another sweet moment in the movie regarding Tony was earlier when he got to the Avengers facility. Was when he said, "Resentment is corrosive." To Steve, like, you know, I just want peace, and basically that was his way of forgiving Steve for everything that happened. Okay, sorry, Malcolm, your turn.
Yeah, I mean, Tony's death is something that in both times I've seen the movie, I teared up at both times. It's just one of those ones that is very emotional. It's like, especially when early on during the battle, when Tony and Peter see each other for the first time since the snap, is like when they hugged. Is like, that's where it started. Like, well, I mean, they're going to pay that off later somehow. And then with the whole scene of him dying, then Tom just then sort of Pepper coming in is like, it's just one of those moments. It just continued on into the funeral when Pepper had the proof that Tony Stark is a heart down. Is like, and you see all the people's like, I didn't recognize Harley at first. It wasn't until after I sort of read up. It's like, I was like, Harley was in, like, what was that? It's like, just didn't recognize him. And it was like, I kind of wish we got more Nick in the movie as well, because I mean the fact we only saw Nick once and he had no lines at all is like,
yeah. I think that was probably just to reintroduce him, because I think he's gonna be the Tony Stark of Far From Home. I think, right, Nico? I mean, pretty much.
He is going to be in Far From Home. As for who's going to be the Tony Stark figure,
I just mean like more the mentor role, probably.
So speaking of Far From Home, that's going to be the last. That's going to be the last movie of Phase 3, and then we move on to Phase 4. And all we know so far for Phase 4 is that we have the Black Widow movie, and we have Guardians 3, but that's going to be a couple years from now because of the James Gunn situation having resolved itself, and also because the Suicide Squad, he's directing that. So it's going to be a while, and we might get a little bit of a break from movies simply because we're going to have all these TV shows coming out on Disney Plus, or not. I don't know. They might have. They're also working on the Eternals, but we still have no idea what that's going to be like. Well, yeah, Doctor Strange 2 is also in development, and
also there's Shang-Chi, the Asian one.
Oh yeah. So with that in mind, with what we've just seen from this movie, and with Far From Home on the horizon, let's give our predictions as to how we think things are going to play out for the future. And I'll start. I already mentioned, I feel like the Young Avengers are going to be a thing. They've set it up with Cassie Lang and with I'm sorry, I don't know what Clint's daughter's name was, but we have a feeling. We know she's probably going to be taking up the role of Kate Bishop. And with the reintroduction of Harley Keener, and even with Morgan Stark, I see potential for a Young Avengers. We know that there's still a desire to put Kamala Khan in here somewhere. It's just a matter of how they get there. So that's one thing I think is going to happen. 2, I mentioned it earlier, the Asgardians of the Galaxy versus Adam Warlock with the Soul Stone still in play, with Gamora out there somewhere. So I feel like the seeds have been planted for that. Thirdly, there was a tease once they did the time jump with an earthquake in the oceans next to Wakanda. Looks like we're getting Wakanda versus Atlantis. if that tease does turn out to be something big. So be prepared for Namor.
Is that something that happened in the comments? Wakanda versus Atlantis?
It is something like Black Panther and Namor do have a beef. And because of the Namor situation still kind of tied up with Universal, much like the Hulk, it would make sense to introduce Atlantis and Namor in a Black Panther movie as sort of the adversaries, as opposed to giving Namor his own standalone and creating that legal hassle.
Well, I mean, just like the Hulk, they can't do a Namor standalone movie at all unless that deal gets sorted out. So, which is why it's probably going to be the plot for Black Panther 2.
And
that would be nice.
Fourthly, and this is just something I feel like would be fun. What's Professor Hulk gonna do now that he doesn't really have anything to do? Give him a job at Peter Parker's school. Please do that, because isn't that part of the Sony deal to get to use Spider-Man in their movies? Is that they have to include an Avenger in each of the movies? Now, Nick Fury, he's an important character, but he's not technically an Avenger. Put Mark Ruffalo in there as Professor Hulk. Have him teaching quantum physics or gamma radiation or something to the children. Just as a fun little scene of he's so big and it's such a small room. Just give us something to laugh at.
Professor Hulk's going to work at Baskin Robbins and force him to eat his ice cream.
And remember, Baskin Robbins always knows.
Yeah.
But those are my thoughts. Zadd, where do you think they're going to go?
As far as movie-wise, I definitely think Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is going to be. Don't really know much about Alan Warlock, even though they teased him in the last one. But definitely think they're going to go more so on the search for the Gamora of 2014 and 2023. So I feel like they're going to be looking for that. I'm not sure who the antagonist will be, but I would not be surprised if people of the galaxy did not find a way to blame the Guardians for what happened. So that wouldn't surprise me.
They probably know that Peter is responsible for them getting snapped in the first place. It's you couldn't just hold it in. You let him get the glove back. You dummy.
Well, no, because if you think about it, Doctor Strange saw 14 million outcomes.
They don't know Doctor Strange saw that.
That means Peter Quill had to punch him.
Yeah, Doctor Strange could have done something else. There was a lot of blame to be passed around. Quill has a lot of himself, but Strange knew what was going on. Also, minor nitpick, how Strange was able to get everybody back from Titan at the end of the movie. From Titan, they went to the lake. How in the hell could he not do that to everybody that was on Titan in Avengers Infinity War? Again, I don't really need to know the answer. I just wanted to point that out. So, he could. There was no need for space travel or anything. Doctor Strange had the ability to do that. So, but no. As far as my second thing is, I'm definitely looking more forward to Far From Home now, because there is no way, no how this movie. They said it picks up minutes after Avengers Endgame, so this movie should be set in 2023. And I expect that every movie, unless it's a prequel movie or I expect unless it's a prequel movie, to be set in the year 2023 or later. So I'm interested in knowing, we see Peter, who I think was maybe 16, 15 in Spider-Man Homecoming. Now he's technically 21, but then he's technically 21 or 20, but then he was erased for 5 years. So can he drink or can he not? Is he 21 or is he 15? I feel like these kids are going to have a very existential crisis to go through in this upcoming movie. But I look forward to seeing that worked out. But also, more importantly, I'm ready. I'm looking forward to seeing how the TV works with the movies now, because I feel like with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. coming back next week,
next week?
Next week. I think May the 10th. It's time to either shit or get off the pot, because they kind of disappointed me with the end of last year's season finale. But then again, it was a very serious finale type of feel. So I'll take that. But guys, they're gonna have to eat. They're either gonna have to be with taking place within those 5 years, or they're gonna have to take place after the 5 years, or they're just gonna have to cut the core and say we have nothing to do with the MCU.
Well-
So I look forward to seeing what happens with like MCU and their TV shows and stuff. What's up, Malcolm?
Yeah, but I mean, that is going to be interesting because in various episodes of near the end of last season, they did reference Infinity War by going, "Oh, Thanos is back in New York."
Exactly.
So, it's going to be interesting because from what they've said is Coulson is going to be a completely different character. But enough about Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. for now, anyway. But for me, Guardians 3 is probably going to be interesting because because wasn't Guardians 2 set about 6 months after the first one?
Yeah, 2014. Yeah.
So it's kind of where my problem is lying here because it depends on because it wasn't confirmed by when in the timeline the post-credit scene where Adam Warlock was in the cocoon there. So, and I kind of find it hard to believe that he's been in the cocoon for all that time since between 2 and 3. So,
Hence why he's probably the villain, because he's had so much time to age.
yeah, but then again, why would he take so long of a time unless they had that he was conveniently snapped away as well, just to come back to wreak vengeance on the Guardians for it to be
exactly.
set.
He plays target for it. That would be very nice.
Yeah.
Hey, James Gunn, I hope you have a pen because we're helping you right here, man. Come on.
I mean, he's had the script written for ages. But so I mean, it's going to be interesting to see if he decides to go off the script he originally was going to go for, which theoretically would have been set before Infinity War. So it's if whether he changes it up to include Thor in this one, or if there'll be a separate movie in which is set after Endgame there. I mean, Young Avengers does intrigue me, and I do think that in Captain Marvel 2, it's probably going to be where they may sort of tease Ms. Marvel, Kamala Khan, Ms. Marvel, more, and bring like if they do plan on going for the Young Avengers sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Far From Home is probably going to be very interesting now because it seemed like I'm pretty sure I've had people disagree with me so much that it's not going to, that there's a lot of people arguing that it's going to be set before Infinity War and all that. It's no, the reasoning for saying is because they find it hard to believe that, because in the trailer you saw all the students. So I mean, unless they do the whole plot convenience that all his classmates are all snapped away and brought back, because otherwise they would have all graduated, provided school was continuing going on for the last 5 years, and so that's definitely going to be interesting. And the other thing is, I've heard a lot of talk about this. I don't think it's him, but does anyone else think there was Ben Mendelsohn in the background?
Yes, I do. Yes, I knew where you're going with that. I do think it was. I made a point to look for him at today's screening. I'm like, okay, wait, is this scene? Okay, it could be him. But Richard brought up a good point. I'll let him talk about what he said. But
well, I'm saying like, yeah, it could be Ben Mendelsohn, but it's not necessarily the Skrull version of him. Like Ben Mendelsohn was an actual character, an actual boss. He was just abducted by the Skrull guy, and he impersonated him. So it could be Ben Mendelsohn, but not necessarily the Skrull version.
Well, I get that, but I mean, but I mean, it's also one of those ones that could be the Skrull in the like human form of that character anyway, because we don't know sort of where the original character that he was portraying is. So I mean, if it is him in the background, if it's not, I don't know. Like it could mean that Secret Wars, because it will give the whole 5 years thing is going to be interesting to see where they go, because it could bring up some interesting villains because of people being pissed at certain Avengers for causing the snap and turning into supervillains and all that. Like whether it's tech-based villain or whatever. But that could be a good catalyst for some of the Skrulls sort of becoming evil and like leading into the secret invasion, if that's where they're going to go.
But like we had the secret invasion, and we understand that the Skrulls weren't actually the bad guys. So,
well, yeah,
where Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. goes with that, if that's where they're going with it, or if they're doing it something entirely different, we'll find out next week, as Zadd just said. But closing thoughts, if you guys have any.
Do I get to say my predictions or?
Oh yeah,
Did you not get to say them? I'm sorry.
No. I mean, it's the same thing that you guys have been saying. You know, Spider-Man, obviously, Far From Home is the last one. Then you have Doctor Strange 2. I'm also going to guess Ant-Man 3, and this is going to be Cassie starting to become like her hero. Yeah, and that's going to set up for the Young Avengers as well. But I want to make a bold prediction from Far From Home for like a tribute to Iron Man. I'm going to say that Peter's going to reveal that he's Spider-Man in this movie. That's going to be my bold prediction. After some point in Far From Home, that he reveals that he is in Spider-Man.
Wait, to who?
No, to the world, you mean? And that's what happened in the comic book too, right? During the whole Civil War storyline.
Yeah, Civil War story, yeah. And also, like, people are complaining, like, you know, like, how are they going to have the same main cast have to be all dressed because, you know, 5 years, not that much difference. But 5 years, I mean, you don't age that much. I mean, even from 16 to 20, you could still look the same and still be older. Like, I do believe Ned gets dusted, but I think Flash actually did not get dusted. He's actually in college.
I wouldn't be surprised. It's still,
but of course, I could be wrong. Like, I'm probably totally wrong, but you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, like as I said to the people brought up the whole trailer of this whole argument was like, but Nick says, "Nice to meet you, Spider-Man." Like they brought up the fact that they were both at the funeral together. So, well, you saw that funeral together. It doesn't mean they talk to each other.
Exactly. I've been to many funerals.
Like Nick disappears so easily. It's like, I'm just gonna hang out in the background and not really talk to anyone, and then I'm gonna.
I was kind of hoping he would hold Goose in his hands when he's just standing there. He just has Goose in his hand,
no,
like he's putting Goose.
No, hey Goose.
Goose screwed up his eye. Now, no.
Or have a Bebo doll in there somewhere.
Oh, for crying
so
out
awesome! He crosses universes.
Bebo all day, yes sir.
Oh, brother.
Bebos of the galaxy.
Richard, anything else?
Like I said, I think Doctor Strange 2, Spider-Man. I kind of think they're gonna somehow incorporate Fantastic Four somewhere in these movies, or like to slowly trying to transition them into the Fantastic Four or X-Men, maybe somehow.
Not for a few years. I don't think so, because we still have the new breed here, so that we want to explore, and like Malcolm mentioned,
and also
they want to do
shows,
Shang-Chi and the Eternals, so
true.
Might not be the right time yet to introduce the X-Men or the Fantastic Four.
Although the other TV show I'm really looking forward to is WandaVision. The one.
The thing that throws me off is that the rumor that it's set in the 1950s. So that makes me think is if this movie is set before Civil War, before Infinity War, regardless of what time period, I'm assuming that if it's set in the 1950s, then that's just like one is like, can we play with the stone in your head and just see what kind of fun we can have in a different time period in a figment of our imagination?
Yeah, there's so many questions to be asked about this series. How does Vision come back? Again, it could be that Shuri builds him up again, which is technically what I think is going to happen. But yeah, there's so many questions asking about WandaVision and
Yeah.
Hawkeye and Friends and stuff like that. But I'm looking forward to all of them. I can't wait till Disney Plus comes out with their $6.99 program, so I can finally quit Netflix charging me $13.99 a month. Screw you, Netflix. Sorry.
All right. So with that said, we're about to hit 150 minutes. Actually, I think we have hit that already. So let's get on out of here. Malcolm Golilay, where can the good people of the internet find you?
You can find me on Tape Fear Productions, hosting Rankum every Sunday night. This week, because it's May the 5th, day after May the 4th, we're doing top 10 Star Wars movies. It's going to be just in different format for this one, because it is only 10 Star Wars movies. You can't make up more on the spot. But
There's 11. There's 11, but
I knew I was waiting for you to say it. I was waiting for you to say it, Nico. Like, well, I heard, because I heard your questions that you wrote for streaming thing. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I know there's 11. Like, with the paddock got sorted so far, we've kind of agreed that it was going to be it's going to be the last one anyway. And no point really doing it, but we do know there's 11, but for top 10, because the animated one is mostly just a lead into the TV series anyway. So it's
plus it wasn't theatrical, was it?
But
it was theatrically released. But Malcolm, continue your plugs.
Yeah. But anyway, you can find me on Full Metal Random every Tuesday, and we've had the 2000s match. It's been up for a while now, and then on May the 4th, we're going to have a special live match with Chris Stoneman, Case Cornelacey, and Jay Burns in a Star Wars match.
I know those people.
And you can find me on Twitter, Letterboxd, and Stardust at Melkor.
Richard Schwartz, Mr. Carefree. Do you care at all if the people find you? And if so, where can they find you?
They can find me on Facebook under Richard Schwartz, External Void under YouTube and Twitter. I do WWE Champions Mobile Gaming. Find me walking around LA, and then probably seeing Endgame 2 or 3 more times in theaters.
My brother Zaddeus Smith, where can the good people find you?
The good people of the world can find me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at Zaddeus Smith. That's ZA2Ds EUS Smith. Or on Instagram at Zaddeus, again, ZA2Ds EUS. Or on Twitter at _Zadd. If you wonder why these always look the same, that's because I wrote on my board with permanent markers. So, yeah, it's not coming off, people. So, you can also find me on the Stardust app, as I mentioned earlier, doing movie and TV reviews at RetributionZ on Stardust. Again, I have my Avengers Endgame review up. Plus, next week is Detective Pikachu. Plus, after that, we got that is John Wick 3 Parabellum. Oh my God, it's about to be a kick-ass number. So go check me out on the Stardust app. You can find me all on Facebook doing multiple trivia competitions. Tomorrow night, comic book free for all. You can also find me on Monday nights with my boy Hunter, the Hitman. Boom, Chandler's doing Beyond the Thrones, talking about Game of Thrones. We just had one this week. Great episode. And also, of course, every Wednesday night, whether we're talking about the MCU, the DCEU, or whatever they want to call themselves this week, or the Arrowverse, which we usually talk about, right here on Crisis on Earth Plex with my boy Nico, the Suave man Regoli, on Wednesday nights. Crisis on Earth Plex right here. What about you, Mr. Nico?
Oh boy, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube at Nico Suave Regoli. That's NICOSUAVEREGOLI. You can find me on Discord, just Nico Suave. You can find me over on Dedicated to Art. That's the name of the Facebook page, the YouTube channel, the Twitter and Instagram are at D2A Channel. I do Schmodown reactions with Case Cornelese and Christopher Doman, and we host a podcast called Who Cares Anyway every Friday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Check that out. And we will also be spoiling Endgame very heavily on this week's edition of Who Cares Anyway. So, yeah. I'm going to be repeating myself a lot this week. But let's see. What else? Oh, yeah. Combat Wrestling Network is the name of the YouTube channel. Combat Wrestling Trivia is the name of the Facebook group. The poorly made Twitter handle is at Combat Wrestling, the number 2. If you like wrestling trivia, if you like wrestling overall, come join us. We'll get you a match. And also, with the exception of this week, because it's happening tomorrow, every Wednesday, check out Adonis Nazario and James Berryman III's weekly Raw and SmackDown breakdown discussion show. I've kind of stopped watching Raw and SmackDown because I'm just kind of getting sick of Vince McMahon's bullshit. But it is what it is. And finally, right here on Multiplex Entertainment, that's the name of the Facebook group and the YouTube channel. The Twitter is at MultiplexYT. The Instagram is Multiplex Entertainment Network and tpublic.com/user/multiplex. Buy our awesome shirts and check out myself and Zaddeus Smith every Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time for Crisis on Earth Plex. Quick programming note regarding next week. We are not going to double up on the episodes, because I'm kind of tired of us doing 2-hour discussions. So we're just going to pretend that we've covered all the episodes that have happened in the past 2 weeks, and the shows that we're going to discuss next week, we're just going to pick up from tomorrow's Cloak and Dagger all the way to Tuesday's Flash. And
you know that you're caught up on them, so y'all want to hear us talk about them. We know our audience. You're good. You're welcome. We're just going to pick up right where we leave off tomorrow.
Yeah. But, one more thing. Check me out on the Discord League. The Movie Trivia Face-Off is what it's called. Don't check out my first match. It was not a good match. Wait a little while for the Inner Geekdom and Star Wars divisions, and also teams where I'm very confident in the partner that I've recently acquired for the teams division there. It's just a matter of I got to study my ass off to get to his level. But, with the exception of the match that came out, check me out on there. And one last thing, Rollin' Crits. It's a show coming up on Twitch very soon with myself and a couple of my other New Kensington, Pennsylvania boys. It's a tabletop game show. It's coming out soon. We're just still trying to get the kinks out, but it will be debuting very soon. So, yeah, when it comes out, check it out. But with that said, that's Richard Schwartz. That's Malcolm Goldie Lay. Zaddeus Smith, and yours truly. If you're ever in a crisis, come find us, because we're in the end game now.